Thank you for choosing the Minority Alliance organization today. Today we will be discussing the Georgia runoff set to occur January the 5th. The last day to register, I believe, is December the 7th, coming up this weekend. So it's very important that we go over a couple of these candidates and discuss what they have to offer towards our communities and basically give everybody an outline on why we should get out and be voting and standing behind the people that we feel represent the things that we stand for. Um, of course, with this Georgia runoff, I believe the biggest key in all this will be the young voters in Georgia, because we are the ones who normally don't show up and and then come out and vote, especially during runoff races. So when it came to the primary this year, the young voters in Georgia actually made up 20% of the votes total that we had this year. So I believe that's going to be one of the key things to be able to get Ossoff and Warnock the backing that they need to be able to make it in the office. Now, starting off, we're looking at Kelly Loeffler, who she was actually assigned to the seat last year, so that makes her the incumbent in one way. But this is her first true candidacy to actually run for the seat herself. One of the things that Kelly actually had going for her is she's the second woman actually to serve in the Senate from Georgia in 98 years, which is a huge thing. And I mean, that's good and all, but you have to actually come with a little bit of substance on what you're running for. Uh, Kelly is actually also the co-owner of the WNBA team, the Atlanta Dream, which is, our women's basketball team out of Atlanta, Georgia. And I mean, it was actually spoke of that she had made a few comments towards Black Lives Matter over the summer, and saying that political movements actually don't belong in sports and things of that nature. But I mean, especially through our organization, one thing that we do believe is, even with the NBA and then finishing off in a bubble, it was huge for them to actually bring in a lot of the speaking on equality for blacks and equality for all, basically, across the board, you know, those pushes, because when you got people who are watching sports 24/7, or people that only focus when the sports on TV, that may be the only time that they actually get to see these type of things. So, from her, that's kind of a blunder, in the sense of politics doesn't belong in sports, no, but a movement does belong in sports. Uh, Looking at a little bit of her background further than that, uh, Loeffler's background is basically in the financial, sector. Her husband's company actually owns, I believe, the New York Stock Exchange and things of that nature, uh, which, goes to tell you that her main focus, behind a lot of her agenda and things of that nature, will be more towards financial, you know, towards companies, making sure companies throughout the state, continue to thrive and things of that nature. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, depending on what angle you're looking at it from. But at the same time, to have somebody who's the richest member of Congress, who's running uh, yet again for a seat to maybe keep the richer rich, instead of, actually helping the poor throughout the state of Georgia. Uh, One thing I did find interesting from her was she had spoke at on Martin Luther King Day at Ebenezer Baptist Church, who Raphael Warnock is actually the pastor over Ebenezer Baptist Church. And one of the comments she had made was she believes we should continue to build the progress that we have made. And, she said there's still a ton of work to do when it does come to equality for all races, and from her, that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me. You know, I'm not the type of person, you don't judge a book by their cover at the end of the day. But for her to even say that and be pushing, for equality still, and as I said, with her being one of the co-owners of the Atlanta Dream, who is comprised of, a good bit of minorities. I believe is predominantly minority team there at the Atlanta Dream last time I checked. So I mean, I don't think that she's so much against uh, the movement for equality for all. It's just, it comes down to a political stance from everybody in that aspect. So, you know, with that, Mark, I know you did a little bit of research on her yourself, and I just want you to speak on a little bit of information that you actually came up with off of Kelly Loeffler there.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is important to point out as we get into each one of these candidates is that now that we kind of have a lot of the bigger things that were sucking the oxygen out of the room with the presidential race and things like that, that appears to be have become its own separate entity to where people in Georgia and people mindful of what the direction of the Senate overall can now kind of concentrate on this particular situation a little bit more closely. And as we've spoken of in other meetings in the past, where there seems to be a lot less energy for off big ticket races, things that are not presidential races, midterm elections, for example, runoff elections, for example. And those things actually require more local attention and more minority attention than even presidential races. Not that, we want as much participation as possible in all these things, but the local stuff and the down ballot stuff affects your community so much more. So in getting into looking at Kelly Loeffler's record, again, I don't know what her particular stance is when it comes to race specifically, because she hasn't been on the scene long enough. She doesn't have a long enough voting record to be able to draw a particular conclusion to that. I would say that her owning the basketball team, and like I said, that's great, but that also isn't a tell as far as like where she stands on race. Donald Sterling owned the basketball team. So there are other, things to consider that will help us as far as what we're looking at when it comes to what we can expect from her as a candidate. One of those things is her husband being the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. We have to look at the type of interests that a person has going into a position. Why are you where you are? And why do you want to be where you are? Is it from a position of helping someone, or is it from a position of taking care of and overseeing your own passions? And we have to stop pretending like conflicts of interest don't exist. They do, and they do across the board. And one of the biggest problems when we look at for some of our business people, and some business people have converted over to the political realm and it was seamless, but others are kind of have a little bit of a different thing when they hit the political realm, because they're not the same. Governance and business are not close to the same, because business, you have a goal, and your goals are very simple: make money, expand your business. You're dealing with the longevity of that business, and you're dealing with the bottom line. Did you make money or not? Well, governance is about people. Governance is about, at the end of the day, how did you help your constituents, and how did you take care of your constituents? And your constituents are comprised of everyone from the super rich down to the lowest rung of poverty. And how you address those issues is important, and your platform moving forward on how you're going to address those issues, if someone gives you a 4 or 6 year term, is going to be wrapped up into a platform that you put out there as your message to the voters, as that this is why you're voting for me. And this is where we run into gigantic holes when it comes to Kelly Loeffler, because I searched for a while. She almost has no agenda whatsoever. I read through some of her things. I read through some of the things that she's looking at when it comes to economy, with some of the things that she's looking at when it comes to all the major issues that plague the minority community today. And you cannot get through a sentence without the word Trump in it. Like, you literally can't. You can go to her website and start reading through things, and you're going to have a hard time finding a sentence or a paragraph that does not have the word Trump in it. So that's one of those situations that a lot of politicians have kind of made an unfortunate choice to hitch your agenda to someone else's agenda in order to latch yourself on to their base, as opposed to building your own, which would give you the type of groundswell of support that is necessary to move forward in your own election. That's an issue that Loeffler has right now, because now you have a situation where you have Georgians who, because they follow, the lead of one person, is going to have trouble kind of following Loeffler, because they've been told that, whether they were told the election was rigged, and whether they were told, certain different things about the election. And, even now she's caught up in it. So now she's going to have a hard time trying to convince a voting public that, well, the election's real when it comes to me, as opposed to when it comes to the other ticket that I follow. And so that's going to be a hard tightrope for her to walk as we move forward in this. And in the meantime, though I've spoken about agenda so far, I've spoken about different things in the background, I've spoken about the difficulties she's going to have moving forward. What I have not spoken on is an agenda moving forward and how that's going to help communities. Why haven't I spoken on that? Because it isn't there. The problem is that there's identity politics that are going on there, and there's going to be kind of a certain amount of groundswell because you're playing on the same team. And in past elections, that had been good enough, but we are dealing with a situation now with COVID-19 running rampant, with jobs being lost, with people not able to recover, and people needing the type of relief that is necessary. They need the stability of gainful employment. They need the stability of healthcare. And we have the ever-present threat of an unequal justice system and an unequal financial structure here in America, that identity politics is no longer good enough. And as we look through the general election and what we saw when it came to certain Democrats that won, certain Democrats that lost, certain Republicans that lost in places that were typically leaning left or right, those are signs that identity politics is no longer the rule of the land, and less and less as we go forward, it is going to be the rule of the land. It's more about, well, what's really going on and what really helps me. Obviously, and we see it on TV every day, there are lots of people who are still into the identity politics, but what motivates the young people who are going to be the people that help move this election and move, elections moving forward for the foreseeable future, it's not just about the identity. It's about what's actually going on. It's about the system that they're in. It's about being able to get an education without horrific debt. It's about being able to not, to have a job and not end up in a food line, even though you're employed. It's about all those different things. And for any senator or any prospective senator or anyone in seeking office, period, now and moving forward, you need to have more on the table about an actual agenda that's meant to meant to lend people a helping hand, with a beginning point, how we got here, what am I going to do, what are the realistic goals, and what's my timetable for getting there, so that people can know, casting their vote for you, that you're going to be able to go to Washington. And even if you can't get all those things done, that you're going to try, that you're going to give it your all, that you're going to introduce policy, that you're going to introduce, things that you're looking to do to help your constituents in your state. This is something that Georgia cannot afford to sit on the sidelines about. And it also, needs to demand more of anyone that's applying for this office than to just ride the wave of a person at the top of the ticket. I would be saying the exact same thing about anybody who just parrots their agenda after whatever Biden says. That's insane. He has an agenda that is different, because it's on a different scope and a different scale. When you are dealing with your state, your constituents, your people, that agenda better be tailor-made to match them and their needs. And if it isn't there, the voters need to recognize that and choose accordingly.
Yes, sir. And then next, we kind of wanted to look over Ossoff, John Ossoff, and a little bit of his background and things of that nature. And as I told you before, I was sold on Warnock, from the get go, and he's one person who, through the organization, I've been pushing, backing him from day one when I've actually heard about him. But hearing about reading on John Ossoff, a little bit of his backing and things that he's done, he's kind of made me a fan in a certain way, in a certain sense, because a lot of the things that he wants to get done is basically, draw a lot of the corruption out of the system. He's very behind civil rights and civil liberties. He sat down and spoke with a ton of kids from HBCUs and things of that nature, and actually trying to see our take on things that we felt needed to be done. It being that Georgia's comprised of a great deal of HBCUs here in our main city. Um, Another thing that he was actually pushing for is the environmental factors and actually bringing Georgia into the next age of let's move forward away from things that are a hindrance to the environment, and let's try to progress and build more new infrastructures that are pro-environmental. Um, Another thing that he had on his agenda that he was running on was healthcare, and actually trying to, secure healthcare for a ton of Georgians. It being that I believe it's about 28% of Georgians that don't have any type of healthcare at all, whether that be Medicaid or actually private healthcare through their companies or anything of that nature. So that's actually something that is a huge issue in Georgia that we need to have taken care of. Um, Another thing that stood out was, John Ossoff had actually ran for a Georgia Congress seat back in 2017 in the special election, and he lost in a predominantly what you would consider a Republican area by a handful of votes when you look at it at the end of the day. And I mean, to be a Democrat, and especially a young Democrat at that point in Georgia, and to lose by that much, he obviously was the key in starting the blue wave, or the blue movement through Georgia, that actually you see has paid off when it came to this election this year, and Biden actually winning Georgia. So another thing with John Ossoff, he actually started, he's CEO of the Insight the World Investigates, which is an investigation firm out of London, which they actually go into different countries and look at corruption within politics, corruption within jails, and things of that nature. And that's a huge thing, especially when it comes to minorities, because one continent that they've been focused on is the African continent and different African countries, and actually looking deeper into a lot of the things that they have going on, corruption wise, especially when we were talking a little bit a while back about Nigeria and a lot of things that were going on over there. His company is actually one of the ones pushing against these things. So, also, as far as Minority Alliance and our goals and the things that we are trying to accomplish, Ossoff's agenda lines up almost hand in hand with a lot of things that we are pushing for right now. Uh, he was also backed by John Lewis before his passing, to try to get him into the Senate. And John Lewis was actually one of the main people pushing him to actually run for senator in Georgia. And at 33 years old, one thing that Ossoff would bring is a lot of youth to the Senate, which is normally comprised of a lot of older, gentlemen, which we need someone at this point who can represent the millennials and things of that nature, and a lot of our ideology and things that we want to see done. And especially in Georgia, as I said, with Ossoff, it's a huge push into the future, bringing Georgia from the old traditional values and things that we have held up, and actually getting us into a more progressive, area of where we see a lot of things in Georgia change, and laws directed towards a lot of things that we need to progress into the future, and building new infrastructure and things of that nature. So I believe, John Ossoff is a great candidate to stand behind. If you want to get out and vote, he's one of the people who, I would highly recommend through our organization. It being that, as I said, his agenda goes hand in hand with a lot of things that we are looking to get past.
Absolutely. And to, for the research that I did on Ossoff, I always start off with, one of the most important things looking at somebody who's fresh on the scene is what are the negatives? What are the negative things that people say about you, and how does that line up with what the reality is? So when I was looking at Ossoff, one of the negative things that I heard about him is that, well, um, he comes from a background, of investigative journalism. You know, and I go, okay, well, is that a bad thing? Because that particular firm and his background has been in investigating and rooting out corruption. If there is anything that we have learned in this country over the last several years, in the last few administrations, is that there needs to be a stronger, more scrutinous eye on corruption and rooting it out. Because again, the difference between business and governance, um, once you begin to blend those, corruption is the natural, it's the natural child. It is going to be the natural birth that comes from that kind of melding of money and business and influence over governance, and the type of processes that we need for communities to thrive and grow. Second thing is that he's an activist. Well, we need more activists. We need more people who can speak to the pain that normal people go through. We need people that can speak to the actual issues that are in front of them and that are dealing with them, that are dinner table issues, as they say, and issues that are for people who don't even own a dinner table. All of those different things require the type of activist voice who can actually speak to those issues in Congress when you're surrounded by people who do not have shared life experiences. And whether it be through his own upbringing and finances or be through what he did for a living, he has been brought nose to nose with that struggle. And that is a powerful thing, to have that sort of advocate voice going into Washington to kind of speak to the issues that you're looking to get changed and the things that need to be done. The third thing that was spoken on was his youth, his age. Well, going into 2020, the average age of the Senate was 68 years old. And I'm not age shaming. Want to make sure, put that out there and be clear about that. However, there is a life experience and expectancy understanding gap between a person, who was in their 60s, who had a completely different life experience than someone in the community today, and especially someone in the minority community today. It was likely impossible, 30, 40, 50 years ago, to rack up $100,000 worth of debt just getting a degree. That happens every day now. And how we speak to that and how we move that forward and how we help people with that is a huge thing, because it can keep someone from getting an advanced education and from moving forward. And it can literally cut off their ability to maximize their own talent and potential in life, the fear of crippling debt. And one of the things in his platform is about debt-free public college. That is the future. If we want to have a future of young people actually achieving anything, in this world now with its competitive market. And then, when you're looking at it again, this is a substance over sensationalism kind of thing, where, as I spoke of a few weeks ago, when we were, comparing different plans, we were comparing minority plans between Trump and Biden at that particular point. And even on this level here, when you start looking at candidates, even for the Senate, or whether it be for a seat in Congress, a seat in city council, a seat on the school board, you need to be able to look at an agenda and see, is there an actual plan? Is there is there recognition of a problem, acknowledging that problem, talking about what needs to be done to fix it, having a plan that is doable and workable and realistic, with realistic results, and be able to speak to it and be able to put your name to it, put it on your website, put it on a flyer, to be able to speak to it at a microphone, and to be able to move forward with it. And Ossoff checks every single one of those boxes. I mean, he had plans and agendas going up and down the line for everything from, not giving COVID relief subsidies to gigantic corporations, and being able to make sure that that money is getting its way into the hands of small business and into the hands of people who really need to, to get by. As a major corporation, yes, you have a lot of financial responsibilities and things like that, but you also have a lot of resources. And if we continue to take care of the top first and hope that a system that we knew didn't work in the 1980s of trickle down economics, and we going to close our eyes and pretend like that's still going to work 40 years later, it's insanity. That insanity needs to end. Healthcare, being able to provide healthcare with a public option for people so that you can choose a health care package if you want to pay for one, but if you can't pay for one, to be able to still be able to get health coverage and be able to not have that sort of fear again of crippling debt, which would keep you from even going to a doctor, and allow medical conditions to fester, and it can cause us, we obviously in the minority community, we suffer from a lot more health problems than a lot of other communities do. And being able to have the option of going to a doctor without it destroying you financially is a huge thing. Environment and energy policy, actually having an environmental outlook, and and renewable, and have a structured plan for renewable energy and how that can help create jobs. When it comes to criminal justice reform, enhancing due process, allocating money towards more police training and demilitarization. You don't need to defund police, as the saying goes, but a demilitarization is, I believe, well past due. There needs to be more money allocated towards training, towards de-escalation tactics, towards counseling and different things when it comes to drug offenses, ending minimum sentencing and things like that, and ending the draw of the financial benefit of the for-profit prison system. And again, he's checking all of those different boxes. So his background as an investigative journalist, his age, being close to the age of people who struggle with those specific problems today, and all those different things, they literally speak specifically to the type of agenda and programs of the issues that we, as this organization, is are looking at day to day, and what normal people are looking for in the politicians that we would like to back and the things that we want to see. So this is, if you are on the fence about who it is that you want to vote for, there are a lot of people that took a flyer on, there are people who take a flyer on new people on the scene all the time, because it's a different voice. It's different than the old school system. And it's somebody looking and speaking to their table issues specifically. These are the type of things that propelled people over the last couple of election cycles to first time office. So this is one of those situations where if you look at it and you look at it objectively, this fits perfectly into that set that people are looking for.
Yes, sir. And I mean, sticking to the whole healthcare side of things, when you look at David Perdue, and as we said, it's a great percentage of Georgians who actually don't have any type of healthcare at all. Perdue was actually one of the people earlier this year who voted against the healthcare bill that was looking to be passed in the Senate to actually help give people more healthcare, universal healthcare, and things of that nature. Purdue, one of the things about the Purdue name in the state of Georgia, most people from Georgia know that David Perdue is actually the cousin of Sonny Perdue, who's a former Georgia governor and actually a part of Trump's cabinet currently. Is Sonny Perdue. When it comes to that name, is it the name that has got him the position that he's in? And, a lot of times it seems that that's the true issue, and people who are your natural conservative Georgians, feel a lot more comfortable sticking with that Purdue family when it comes to politics and things of that nature. The history behind David Perdue and things that he's done before he actually even came into the Senate. He was a former CEO of Reeboks and Dollar General. And if anybody knows, those two companies under his watch actually lost a lot of profit. They fell off a lot. They weren't the companies that they traditionally were. Reeboks is a name that you don't even hear about too much anymore, uh, due to his leadership and running that company into a certain direction that it didn't appeal anymore towards the typical average consumer. Uh, him being a couple of his other votes was one against the pro-immigration securities, and us being the Minority Alliance organization, we're huge behind immigrants and them actually having a smoother transition into being able to find to become a citizen of our country, and it not being so difficult and scrutinized when they do come here from different countries. So for him to vote against pro-immigration securities and things of that nature, that's not something that we really stand behind in that nature. We want to. We're looking for equality for all people, not just one set of people, not just one group of people. That includes immigrants and people from other country who come here looking for a better opportunity also. So um, a ton of his voting record and a ton of things that he votes for are things that have been backed by the Trump administration. And you know, we were talking prior to this conversation, and one thing I said to you was there's not a he doesn't have a colorful agenda. It's not his agenda. It's not things that he's running for. He's sticking up to. It's the traditional GOP candidate. He's basically more tailored towards the books, uh, things that are traditionally right for a GOP candidate to stand behind, to run on. It's not like he sways his opinion. Um, Normally, especially going into the next decade here, when we're looking at who we elect and things of that nature, you want somebody, no matter if they're on the Democratic side or the Republican side, who sometimes doesn't vote, with their party, who sometimes sticks out and may say, I like this bill because I like this bill and I stand behind this bill. And that's more so what we're looking at when we're looking at who we want to represent us going forward, and that's across the nation, not just in Georgia alone. So, looking at David Perdue, as I said, it's it's not things that he personally stands behind. It's more so the flow, go with the flow. If Republicans vote this way, I'm going to vote with them. Whether he believes normally um, in that bill or amendment of things of that nature or not. So, you know, uh, if we could give him a grade through the organization on how well I would vote for him, I mean, to me, that's a huge D, C at best, because we're looking for somebody different going into the next decade, and actually progressing a lot of the places we're coming from now, and to move the needle a little bit more for the typical average Georgian to actually see, a healthcare that actually works for them, a healthcare system that works for them, and not just that, to bring a lot of Georgians out of poverty, especially when it comes to the inner cities in Georgia, where there's a ton of poverty, throughout the city, and you see people, you know, basically sleeping on the streets and things of that nature. Purdue's focus is not on these people. Purdue's focus is on the people who actually are doing well off. And as I said, when it goes back to Kelly Loeffler, both of them with financial and business backgrounds, both of them, it seems like their agendas line up and to keep the rich rich and keep the poor poor. And that's things we're actually looking to change through the organization.
Absolutely. And I would actually say that your grade was probably generous because I had him rated at a clean F. And the reason why I do that is because his, and you did a great job of pointing out his voting record when it comes to these things, and the way that he, again, aligned his agenda up to where if there were a mythical GOP vending machine somewhere, he puts in his money, he pushes the button, he gets out, hey, anti-abortion. He puts his money in, he spits it out, oh, law and order. He puts his money in, he spits it out, support the troops. Like um, this is not the time for that. The bottom line is that we're looking at situations where we have, as you said, a homelessness crisis that is growing by the day as people are unable to afford rent. We have an unemployment crisis. We have people out of work. We have people who have unemployment benefits right now that are going to run out soon, and they've lost jobs that are not coming back. I'm an employer myself, and I can tell you right now, I have 50% of the staff that I had 7 months ago. And so did all of those people were all of those people able to find jobs and land on their feet and be able to take care of themselves and their families? I honestly don't know. And for people, in the state of Georgia who are dealing with all of these different types of problems, you need those problems spoken to. You need those problems addressed, because one way or another, when we get to January of next year, we're going to have a new day and a new situation where we have to start looking at how do we fix all of the things that we have spent 2020 recognizing are broken. And whether it be in how we're dealing with COVID, as if we're dealing with vaccine versus, taking a vaccine versus not taking a vaccine. How do we move forward with this? How do we move forward with that? How do we create jobs in industries that are not able to recover yet? How are we able to take care of people, and how are we able to get real things done and accomplished? How are we able to actually put criminal justice reform pen to paper to legislation, signed and done? All of those things, we need people speaking to those issues. And that doesn't come out of a vending machine. That doesn't come out of a playbook of well-rehearsed talking points that are set up by familiar faces, in political circles, familiar faces in media circles, and then laid out for you to swing a t-ball bat at these softballs left, right, and straight, and not answer the tough questions. One of the things that David Perdue was not able to speak on was when he was asked multiple times about voter suppression efforts. Georgia has its own history, its own ugly history when it comes to voter suppression. John Lewis is from, and was congressman in Georgia, and he fought for voting rights. How can you be a senator representing the people of Georgia and not speak on voting rights and not speak on voter suppression and not be 100% against voter suppression when Martin Luther King's church is in Georgia and when John Lewis's congressional district is in Georgia? This is no longer an acceptable, politics as usual era. We are in an era now where there's activism, and there's people talking about issues, and there's people who care about issues. The Minority Alliance organization did not exist 1 year ago. All of these different things are, the ball is moving forward, and society is going to get dragged forward one way or another. And for those who, cater to this archaic system, it's more and more glaring when they do. And people are finding it less and less acceptable, and that's starting to translate itself into the ballot box. When you look at 2018 and you look at 2020 and you look at the sheer number of people who are first time in Congress, you look at the age of some of the people getting elected to Congress, you look at the diversity and the backgrounds of some of the people who are going into Congress now. You have a person like Cori Bush, who was homeless 4 years ago and is a U.S. Congresswoman today. You have other people who are, coming from all of these different backgrounds, and that needs to be what we look like as a governing body, is what we look like at home. And what we look like at home is a lot of different things. We have the super rich, we have the moderately rich, we have the middle class, we have the lower class just scraping by, we have the people who've had issues and trouble, we have the recently incarcerated who need to be able to integrate back into society. We have all of these different things. We have the immigrant. We have, a person who just came here trying to live a better life, and the people who are trying to keep them out are only 3 generations at best away from when their family did it too. So we have all of these different problems that are going on, and we need people to speak to them. And when you're running out and you're just going out off the same stale talking points that we've seen before, when you're not willing to debate because somebody called out, because a person who investigates corruption found some in you and called it out. You need to be able to stand by your stuff. You need to be able to stand by your record and stand by what you do and have this sort of integrity to be able to look people in the eye, look voters in the eye and go, I am right for you. I'm not just right for the people who showed up to my last fundraiser. I am right for all of you. I am right for the majority of you. I will help you get your issues taken care of. I will help you get food on your table and make sure that there's a stability about your life and that you don't have to worry about some of those things that we've covered in this conversation. And people need to ask themselves seriously, is David Perdue doing that for you? And again, this isn't an advocation, whether it be just for Ossoff or just for Purdue or whatever the case may be. But when you're evaluating these candidates, we need to do a legitimate, fair, and harsh evaluation of them. And if someone's not speaking to your issues, we can no longer afford to not call those things out and not look at them and not say, is this good enough for you? Because the answer for some people is yes. Some people are fine with the status quo and do not like shaking boats. And that's fine as a personal decision. But for us, I know, we are looking out for the welfare and well-being of minorities overall and in the communities in which they live. And if we are doing that, honestly, those talking points are no longer in play.
Yes, sir. And I mean, we spoke a lot about activism, speaking on also. And, the next candidate, I think his record goes beyond activism. And I mean, even at that, you spoke on how, Georgia, especially Atlanta, Georgia, it's basically the home of civil rights. It's the home of Martin Luther King. You know, this is where a ton of civil rights movements actually began. And that was, a huge push for me being from Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised, uh, to actually start this organization. Uh, when I didn't see, somebody who is cut from the similar cloth, uh, pushing for these type of things. Uh, and one person who I believe, is a splitting image of the things that made me get into this, and the reason why we even started this organization is Raphael Warnock. He's the former pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, which is the church home of Martin Luther King, and things of that nature. And he's been a huge activist and advocate in Atlanta, Georgia for years, beyond running for a political office or a political seat or anything of that nature. And one of the biggest issues that he's been trying to attack, even from his current position, was the poverty that we see going on in Atlanta and the inner cities and things of that nature. And wherever he saw fit to be able to lend a hand or help in any nature to push these issues and get these issues dealt with at the level that he was able to. We saw that he did do it. And also he's, a person who's born in Georgia himself, being originally from Savannah, Georgia, and being an alum of Morehouse College. Raphael Warnock is somebody who, as I said, through the organization I've been pushing from day one, uh, from him starting to run, is because he speaks to everything that we are trying to get done through this organization to the T. Bring healthcare, equality for all, fight for criminal justice, things of that nature. The only reason, realistically, why Warnock even got into this battle to quote unquote become a politician, because I still don't think whether he's becomes a senator or not, I don't think I would still call him a politician as much more as I would call him an activist or somebody who's standing in the gap to actually progress the movements that we stand behind and things of that nature. Uh, and the huge thing about him that sticks out is he's in touch with the everyday person to the T. As I said, him being the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist, you have to realize the individuals that he comes in contact with on the daily. And that's individuals from every different type of background. It's not just one type of person. And that's something in Georgia right now that we truly need and we're truly looking for when it does come to who we want to represent us going forward. Um, One of the number one key factors is he would actually be the first black senator from Georgia. And to me, that speaks a ton. in the sense of we are the Minority Alliance organization, and when you have a state that has not elected, I believe, a black senator prior to the Reconstruction period, uh, that Raphael Warnock is somebody that we need to push into office to uh, give the opportunity to see something different throughout Georgia that we haven't seen, you know, since the state has existed. And this election, this runoff election, will just truly show. I mean, even further than the Biden versus Trump. When we went to profile each of those candidates, uh, this election will show the true difference in if Georgia has progressed or if we are ready to stay in the same way that we have been, since the beginning of time.
Absolutely. I would say that, more than anything else, if we look at these four candidates, we can see the stark similarities in what we're looking at from the two incumbents and what we're looking at in the two challengers. The biggest thing that we're seeing in the incumbents is a commitment to the current status quo. And what we're seeing in the two challengers is activism based on shared experiences. They are in touch with the actual community itself. They've gotten their hands dirty. They've gotten elbows deep into the type of issues that we are dealing with and we see every single day. And they're kind of personify where America's at right now and what it is that it's looking for. And this isn't, I'm not trying to shill for, just specifically the Democratic candidates, but I tell you, when you look at the actual issues individually, the actual platforms individually that all of these people are running on, it speaks for itself. And this is a tipping point moment, as you alluded to, for Georgians, young and old. It is a time for a real self-evaluation of what do you want out of not just your state, but the nation going forward. It isn't fair that, due to the circumstances and the way things shake out, this particular Senate runoff race is going to determine quite possibly how agendas move forward in the nation. But it does fall upon those people. It does fall upon the people of Georgia for those things. And I believe that, Georgians are set up and uniquely qualified for that fight. Again, that is the home in many ways of civil rights, especially in the modern era. So it's a fantastic thing. It's a fantastic, time for that message to be sent that the old style, not good enough. That the talking point politics, not good enough. That not addressing the issues that attack people and have beaten people down has caused deaths in the community, has caused the type of financial pain and angst in the community, and to not be addressed and to be brought up as a shallow talking point once every election cycle and then it goes away. Like, those things aren't good enough. They're simply not. And, as getting into, the Reverend's, his own record, he's done a couple of things that stand out, rejecting, PAC money. That's a big deal. That's a big deal because a lot of these things, our politics a lot of times are shaped by, corporate donations and the money that people are getting to, enact agendas that are spit forth, by these politicians are shaped by their donors. So not taking that type of money, where you get to govern and you get to make your argument based on ideals. What a concept. Being able to expand on things. I mean, to have a reverend in the South who speaks to, women's rights and, the type of equality and things like that we're looking, that people are looking for in this modern time. I think that's the biggest thing for me in the politics today, is that we are looking at a modern time and we're looking at modern solutions for a modern time. Everything needs an upgrade. If you take your phone out of your pocket, it is not the same phone you had 10, 15 years ago. It can't be. But and we can upgrade our phones, we can upgrade our watches, we can upgrade our computers. We also need to upgrade our governance. We need to upgrade our politics. We need to upgrade how we look at how problems get solved. Our population is larger. Our population, in many ways, is more vulnerable. Um, Everything has upgraded except the way we think and the way we attack the problems that plague us. And it's time for that evolution in governance. So for a person like Reverend Warnock to be able to speak to some of those issues and to be able to have a plan on some of those issues, have that plan give detail, have those plans actually come out, and have an ability to enact them. You know, that is the most important thing as we move forward. That is the most important thing for these communities. So I would suggest to anyone, again, as you evaluate all of these candidates, what what is what's important to you? What's going on with you? What's going on with your family? What's going on with your community? Again, that those four zones that I talk about: yourself, your family, your community, your country, and who's speaking to those issues? Is that candidate speaking to those issues? Is that candidate working towards those issues? Can they help you? Will they help you? And evaluate those things. Make sure you're registered, of course, and be prepared to go to the ballot box and let your issues come out on that paper, so you can move forward with that clear conscience, knowing that somebody's out there trying to fight for whatever it is that you're looking for.
Yes, sir. And also, when you speak on, you said you didn't want to be, a shell for a Democratic candidate. And, even during the primary, my biggest thing was vote purple. I don't believe in voting, one way or another. You vote for, who's the best candidate across the board. And at the end of the day, I believe, we have two candidates who speak entirely to voting the color purple, and I don't believe that their ideology nor their agendas are specifically geared towards one side, but more so towards the side of what will better the general public. So I mean, people will decide for themselves going into this election, what they feel necessary and see fit for the state of Georgia to move in the next direction that we're looking to move over the next 4 years until the next election. And, again, we're going to go over the deadline to register to vote for the runoff is December the 7th, this weekend. So that's 5 more days. Give people 5 more days to make sure that they're registered to actually to vote in the runoff, because your registration will not carry over from the primaries and things of that nature. So you got to remember to re-register again. That's one thing we got to make sure over the next week that is huge and important. We got to continue speaking on it, continue to post, uh, and get people registered. Early voting actually starts December 14th. So you can get out on December 14th and go ahead and make it to your polls if you feel like, for COVID safety reasons, or you feel like you won't be able to make it on election day on January the 5th. Go ahead and get your vote out earlier and make sure that you're already accounted for. You can also request an absentee ballot if you figure you want to vote by mail again. And the deadline to request one of those is December the 31st. So let's go ahead and make sure that all these things are accomplished. And the actual election day is January 5th. So moving forward, as I said, through the organization, uh, there's a couple things we're going to continue to push for. It's a couple things we're going to continue to keep an eye on. With COVID, it's going through winter now. We've made it, into the winter months, and it's only getting colder outside at this point. So people got to remember, yes, the vaccine is on its way to be distributed, but the common American will probably not have an opportunity to actually get the vaccine until around the spring of next year. So you got to make sure that you still follow safety precautions, whether that's wearing your mask, using hand sanitizer, disinfectant, things of that nature, to continue to keep yourself and your family safe. Uh, Another thing that we have going on with Christmas approaching is actually one of our members, Yasmin Denis, who was our first member to actually partner her brand and her company with the organization. We actually are offering a $25 gift certificate to use on her website, Yaya Rule, uh, to actually go in and be able to show a little bit of our support from the organization towards her business and thank her for actually being a part of the organization and actually being a partner with us. So we're actually looking forward to the two most active members over the next about 3 weeks or so. That's as far as if you're posting, if you're inviting people into the organization, if you're liking posts from the organization, or actually coming on the posts and commenting, or even being a part of the videos that we actually put out on YouTube and showing your support and sharing those and getting those out. So that's the things that we're looking for over the next 3 weeks or so, to be able to give out these gift certificates for two people, to basically get you something as a Christmas gift off of her page. And I mean, I believe the typical thing on her page is only around $20 or so. So 25, you may be able to get you a shirt and actually an accessory to go with it at that point. So being on that end, we actually want to show a lot more support behind her and actually be thankful for her joining the organization in the capacity that she has.
Yeah, I would second that, and I want to, obviously give a shout out and a thanks to Yasmin for A, being a part of the organization, and B, lending her brand, in that manner. It's a fantastic thing. Us being able to support one another, being able to support not only a minority business but a small business, it's super important right now. And for her to be able to lend her time and talents towards the cause and towards our members is a huge thing. To piggyback off of what you were saying, I mean, obviously this now, whether it be red, whether it be blue, whatever it is that best shapes your world and what you're looking for and what you need out of yourself, your community, your family, your community, and your country. We need to. It isn't free. We have to work towards it. And times are tougher now. Things are going on now, and it requires our work and our attention in order to get there. That's the reason we speak on these things. That's the reason why we do the research and we try to bring you as much of the information as we can. It's the reason why all these different things are being done. And there are more people than just us out there doing it. There are activists all over. Obviously Stacey Abrams is out there trying to get people signed up and get people registered, things like that. Keep the word out there, keep the momentum going, things like that, because this sort of change can only be stopped through apathy. It can only be stopped if we decide not to do anything about it, not to check on things, not to listen, not to read, not to pay attention to what's going on and act on those things. So we have, just a little bit more work to do, and we have a responsibility to make sure that, we continue to participate in this process. Mountains can be moved as long as people are willing to band together to move them. So that's something that we want to continue to do. And again, as we move through this holiday season, COVID is still a thing. So we do not have the luxury of subscribing to COVID fatigue and just letting it go. We see the numbers that are going on out there. We see what's going, where people are at, and we see the reluctance of so many to do the little things possible to help keep one another safe. So it's incumbent upon all of us to be able to take care of ourselves and take care of each other, take care of our families, take the necessary precautions so that we can continue to be available for them. And we can continue to be available for, our partners, wherever we may be, wherever we're working, whatever it is that we're doing. We want to continue to be able to do those things and not lose them. So, I always say, in these calls that you got to take care of yourself, take care of each other. Those times are, those words are never more important than they are right now. So as we continue to move forward, do that. If you haven't registered, please do so. Please get ready for this, get a chance, continue to participate in the page, continue to participate with what we got going on here. You can help out your community, continue to push their awareness out there, and maybe you can win yourself a gift card as well. So I will tell everybody, stay safe, take care of one another, and keep those eyes open.